How's going guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto becomes the Kyubi Predator, part 2. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. The group of female shinobi of the Leaf rushed after the masked hunter using his scent mixed with Hinata's own to follow the bizarre trail the man was taking to get away. As they reached a pre-verbal fork in the road with many paths ahead of them, Hana cursed at the problem before her as Hinata's scent went in multiple different directions, which confused her since it should be possible, and each woman broke off towards each path Hinata pointed to. When Kurenai went down her path, she prayed to Kami that Hinata was alright and was thinking up various ways to torture this monster before putting him out of his soon-to-be misery. There was even a ray of hope in her mind, as the masked hunter had more than enough time to kill them all, but chose not to, and that meant there may be some truth to the idea that this monster doesn't kill women. If that is true, he'll soon change his mind when I get through with him, and wished he had tried to kill me, thought Kurenai, as she saw Hinata being carried away by the uncloaked form of the masked hunter. The said masked figure, however, stopped on a tree branch before turning around to face Kurenai as he put the girl down and then looked the Hyuga's former sensei right in her crimson eyes. Kurenai for the most part kept her guard up and kunai drawn in both hands to give him twice the pain for his troubles. Dangerous behavior you are showing, Yuhi Kurenai. I thought Leaf Shinobi attacked in pairs, said the masked shinobi in a mocking voice as he saw Kurenai glare at him even harder and was trying to figure out a way around him to get to Hinata. Give Hinata back, monster, or I'll show you what the pair of kunai in my hands can do when I'm angry, said Kurenai as she waited for an opening to make her move and grab Hinata before running off with the unconscious girl. Really? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't have Hinata and neither do the other versions of myself your comrades are chasing, said the masked hunter as the Hinata turned into a shadow clone of him and was holding Hinata's thick jacket. What? Said Kurenai as she saw the shadow clone go poof and dispel before her eyes. You should be commended for trying to save Hinata from me, Yuhi Kurenai, but it was all for naught and you along with the others will have to report to your Hokage that you've lost someone you hold dear to your heart, said the masked hunter as he also went poof to indicate that he was a shadow clone and saw the shocked look on the woman's face before the memory went to the original. All Kurenai could do was fall to her knees and cry out in horror at losing her favorite student to the likes of her kidnapper. Unknown location, time later unknown. Hinata groaned in minor agony as she was struggling to awaken from the forced slumber her capture put her in, and when she opened her eyes found herself on a bed in a mildly dark room. As her senses came back to her, Hinata realized what happened before sitting up and checking her body to see that it was still whole with the exception of one thing. She was lacking clothing. She wasn't naked by any means, as she still had her dark gray shirt, bra, and panties on, though Hinata was wondering how he came to be like this. So, the young Hyuga girl got off the surprisingly comfy bed before slowly letting her feet touch the cold floor that made her jump slightly and walk towards the exit of the room that strangely enough had no door to it. When Hinata walked out of the room, she found herself walking along a dark corridor with little lighting to guide her path as she touched the rough walls with the strange glyph designs on them and made her way what she felt was the heart of this place. And she was right. What Hinata saw was a large circular room covered from the knees up in a dense fog with 4 stone-like pillars covered with strange designs near the center. On a wall closest to her right was a wide variety of strange exotic weapons, never before seen by possibly anyone in the elemental countries, and across the room was what made her let out an almost inaudible gasp. Across from her, Hinata saw a wall filled various skulls mounted there like trophies, as well as various other items that signified that these people that once held them were dead and were taken instead of the skulls in the event such part of the physical body was damaged. For reasons unknown to her, Hinata walked towards the wall filled with trophies that had been collected from the victims of the masked hunter and read some of the names listed beneath the skulls with the headband of the shinobi to prove where they were from. Some of these people she knew as they were from the Leaf, but also those that had in one point hurt Naruto when he was a kid and had been let go without punishment with orders to take posts outside of the village until they no longer hated the blonde. They eventually came back some time later but never lost their hate and everyone who knew these now dead shinobi knew it too. Hinata's musing over the trophy wall were cut short when she heard a growling noise of sorts and had a bad feeling growing in the back of her stomach before turning around to see the source of the noise. Sure enough, a few feet from Hinata was the ever-tall and imposing form of the masked hunter staring at her with his face being unreadable due to the mask he wore. He wasn't armed, as far as she could see, with the small exception of his armor and his clawed hands that currently looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Internally, Hinata was terrified at seeing such an imposing warrior before her as she had never seen anything like him and even the first time seeing him paled in comparison to now. However, at the same time Hinata knew she had to find out just who she thought was behind that mask and if it was who she thought it was. Even if she died afterwards at his hands, Hinata didn't care since it would be without regret and know the one simple truth that mattered to her now over all others. "Enjoying the small sample collection, I take it," said the masked hunter as he saw the section of trophies she was looking at and saw it was skulls collected from the shinobi of the leaf. Small sample, thought Hinata as she now recalled the bingo book stating that the masked hunter in front of her had killed hundreds of people and there were only dozen or so skulls, some with spines still attached, on the wall. "Do you know why I spared you, Hyuga Hinata?" said the masked hunter as he saw her looking from the wall to him and saw how scared she was right now. "No," said Hinata, though it was partly a lie as she did have a clue but was afraid to speak it and be wrong like she feared she would be. "You're lying," said the masked hunter in an almost amused voice as he saw Hinata jump a little in fright at the fact he knew she lied, red in the face, and began spilling out one apology after another in the hopes she wouldn't be his next trophy. "Father was right, I was never really good at lying and too innocent for my own good when it comes to talking to others," thought Hinata as she had never really lied in her life and tried to avoid it altogether. "I always thought it was cute how you blushed, Hinata-chan," said the masked hunter as he saw her look up at him and eyes widening with a look of realization in them. "Naruto-kun. Is that you?" said Hinata with hope in her voice and in her eyes before he began to raise his hand to his mask. "I'll let you judge for yourself, Hinata-chan, but you may not like what you see and you may come to hate me," said the man as he removed the various tubes connected to his mask and wrapped both hands slowly over it before pausing to take it off when the girl in front of him grabbed his wrists. "Let me be the judge of that, Naruto-kun," said Hinata as she knew now without a doubt in her mind it was him and that he feared what she thought of him. So after a long pause, the two removed his mask together and Hinata came face to face with the man that so many people feared in the elemental countries. Naruto's face had a more reptilian appearance to it now as it was smoother, shiner like a snake's, but nowhere near the appearance of Orochimaru's pale face. As for the face itself in terms of features, the whisker marks on Naruto's face were more noticeable now, his teeth were more animistic and his once blue eyes were now a demonic red. It was then Hinata noticed that his hair was spiky but at the same time were not and looked like the strange hairstyle known as dreadlocks that were red while the spiky part was blonde. On his face were little spikes of what looked like hair, but they gave him a fierce warrior look and felt that anyone seeing Naruto's face would think twice in trying to fight him. "So what do you think of me?" said Naruto as he dropped the mask into the swamp of fog that covered the floor of the room and let Hinata run her hand over his face while she eyed every inch of him. I think that you are still Naruto-kun to me despite the changes you have made to yourself," said Hinata as she felt a shiver run down her spine when touching his face and being so close to him now after so many years. "And you are not the same girl I knew years ago, Hinata-chan. You've changed. You've grown stronger not only as a shinobi but into a beautiful woman and I have kicked myself every day since I realized your affection for me. I should have focused more on you than that pink-haired fangirl Banshee and shown you the affection worthy of a goddess," said Naruto as he eyed her up and down with a hint of amusement in his voice while Hinata blushed a new shade of red. "Goddess? Me, why is he looking at me like that? Okami, I'm half naked," thought Hinata as she immediately realized that this entire time talking to Naruto she was in little to no clothing and tried to cover herself up while blushing from head to toe in red. "Don't be shy now, Hinata-chan. You have nothing to be embarrassed about," said Naruto as he smiled down at her and took a full step closer so their bodies were mere inches apart. "What about my teammates that were with me?" said Hinata as she tried to not focus on Naruto's body, the fact they were so close right now and he was looking at her with eyes that seemed to be seeing through what clothing she had on. "They were unable to follow after I took you away. They tried to find me through your scent but after removing a few articles of your clothing and using a few of my shadow clones hinged into you with them on," said Naruto as he let the implication of how he deceived the female Inuzuka enter Hinata's mind and make her blush further knowing what he had done to put her in this state of being half naked. "By now, they've reported me captured, if not dead by your hands, and Tsunade-sama will call for your head," said Hinata as she felt his hand on her face and leaned into it in full belief he would never hurt her. "Not if you return to Konoha and tell them I wish to become a part of the village," said Naruto as he saw Hinata look at him in shock and then wrap her form around him before shaking her head no at the idea. "No. You can't, Naruto-kun. Officially, you are still banished and if you return now even under a mask, it could force Tsunade to order your execution. Not to mention you killed so many leaf shinobi that it would be political suicide to let you go without some kind of punishment involving physical pain," said Hinata as she didn't want to imagine Naruto being put in a room filled with shinobi who hated Naruto before and now after what he had done knowing full well they would attempt to destroy him. "Just tell the old hag to make it a condition of me coming in. As far as Tsunade knows, we are two separate people, and she will gladly make it happen if it means that I am captured within her walls, said Naruto, as he felt Hinata tighten the grip of her hug, and the scent of lavender filled his senses. She will want to know why you made such a strange request, said Hinata, as she knew Tsunade wasn't an idiot and was going to wonder if the two were indeed not the same. Tell her that I know all about Naruto's past and that I respect him too much to not seize this opportunity to bring him back to his home. With full immunity on all charges against him and full restitution to his person for past crimes done against him by the Leaf of course, said Naruto, as he knew Hinata could pull this off and that through this move could gain everything he wanted from the Leaf. And more. I'm not very good at lying, said Hinata, as she heard his heart beating and made her feel a tad sleepy. Still, I have faith in you Hinata-chan, and I know that you can pull this off if you believe in yourself, said Naruto smoothly into her ear and felt her body heat up when he did that. When do I go back? I don't want to leave you, said Hinata, as she held onto him and wanted to ask him so many things. I know you don't Hinata-chan. As for when you go back, how does a few days sound to you? Said Naruto, as he growled into her ear and Hinata lost herself in the moment with sleepy eyes. That sounds good Naruto-kun, said Hinata, as she felt herself falling asleep again and collapsing into his form. Well, it took over a decade to happen, but you finally got the girl of your dreams, and even I must admit you caught yourself quite the vixen, said Kyubi, as he felt Naruto becoming irked by that and mentally scowled at the fox. Shut up fox. Don't make me turn your cage pink and bring out Barney again. Thought Naruto, as he had done that when the fox teased him about this during the last 3 years and had used it only once to make the Kyubi think twice about the teasing. Okay. Geez, what a bitch. Said Kyubi to himself. What was that? Thought Naruto with a look that dared Kyubi to repeat what he said. I said what an itch since I have an itch on my back. Said Kyubi quickly as he didn't want to face Barney and the pink room. Right. Sure you do. I'll let it slide for now since I'm with Hinata-chan, but don't push your luck furball and remember I love you. You love me. Piss me off again and I will just reintroduce you to Barney thought Naruto as he felt the fox shiver at that and keep to the darkness of his cell. Naruto-kun, said Hinata, as she was clearly sleeping now and Naruto scooped her up in his arms before taking her to a more appropriate bed than the one she was in earlier. Konoha 3 days later. I can't believe this has happened, said Tsunade, as she read the report given to her by Kurenai over and over again while trying to read over the teardrop marks the Genjutsu mistress made when writing it. When the team came back, Tsunade could tell instantly by the lack of one member that something had gone wrong and heard everything about the battle that led up to Hinata's capture. How each of the women broke off to follow Hinata's scent when they found it scattered, only to find the masked hunter had used shadow clones hinged into Hinata while holding a single piece of clothing that she once had on. What was worse was the meaning behind the lack of clothing and how it could put the young Hyuga heiress in a situation many young female shinobi shouldn't be in at that age. Even now, Tsunade was debating to label Hinata MIA or Kia since the latter was also a possibility if the masked hunter decided to end her life. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade-sama. Come quick. Said Shizune as she rushed into the room and panting from running all the way from the Konoha streets to the office. Not being on the run for 3 years put her out of shape in that department. What? What is it Shizune? Said Tsunade as saw the woman's face was filled with joy and surprise. It's Hinata. She's back and she's alive. Said Shizune as she saw Tsunade's eyes widen in disbelief and ran out of the office to see the Hyuga girl herself. Konoha Street sometime later. Hinata smiled as she walked into Konoha with glow about her that you wouldn't expect from a girl who went on a failed mission to track down a notorious S-ranked criminal and getting captured in the process. Naruto had provided clothes for her to wear when she left as he couldn't send her back the way he took since it would make many a man come after her for lust-filled purposes and he the former Leaf Shinobi now hunter couldn't let that happen. Hinata. Said Kurenai as she heard about her former student's return and hugged the girl with all her strength. Kurenai-sensei, it's alright. I'm fine. Really? Said Hinata as she saw Kurenai looking her over with careful eyes and knew that the woman suspected something had happened to her. Are you really? Did that monster do anything to you? Rape you? Torture you? Said Kurenai as she looked for any signs of Hinata hiding those facts by staring into the girl's eyes and found nothing so far to indicate the Jounin's worst fears. Kurenai-sensei. I said I'm fine. The masked hunter only kidnapped me so we could talk and deliver a message to the Hokage, said Hinata as she saw Kurenai frown at that, but then again, it might make some form of sense and wondered if that was really true. Alright, let's take you to the Hokage, who will, said Kurenai, who stopped when the Hokage came and appeared before them instantly looking at Hinata with careful eyes. I'm glad you are alive, Hinata, but we need to talk privately in my office and tell me about what it is you saw while with that monster, said Tsunade, as she saw Hinata nod her head but had a look of seriousness on it that surprised a female fire shadow and wondered what changed in the younger woman. Yes. We have much to talk about, Hokage-sama, and about Naruto-kun coming home, said Hinata, as she saw the Hokage and Kurenai frown at that, since this was always on the forefront of the younger girl's mind from day one of the banishment. How is that related to what you went through with the masked hunter, Hinata? Said Kurenai, as she saw her former student look at her and wondered if the masked hunter had offered her something the Hokage couldn't regarding the blonde. It is related for the deal he wants to make with the Hokage. The masked hunter told me he is offering himself up upon entering Konoha's walls and in exchange for Naruto-kun's banishment from Konoha being lifted. He also wants Naruto-kun to have full immunity on whatever crimes the two councils claim he's committed in the past and restitution be paid out to Naruto for the crimes Konoha committed against him for the Kyubi, said Hinata, as she saw Tsunade's eyes budge out of their sockets and jaw drop with Kurenai doing the same. Why would the masked hunter do this now? The two haven't even met each other. Have they? Said Kurenai, as she felt something was off about this and knew the Hokage did too. No, but the masked hunter knows of Naruto-kun's past here in Konoha and the injustice the leaf has done to him. He respects Naruto-kun for putting up with us and wishes him to return here to get what was denied by the leaf, said Hinata, as she looked at the two women looking back at her with suspicion and wondered if that was really the case. And he's willing to surrender himself to the leaf in exchange for Naruto returning and getting everything that is rightfully his. Said Tsunade, as she looked Hinata square in the eye and saw the Hyuga girl nod her head yes. Yes, said Hinata, as she saw Tsunade thinking about this and Kurenai was also looking at the Hokage for her answer to this deal too. What do you think? Is it some kind of trap? Said Kurenai in a whisper to the Hokage as she looked back at Hinata and then at the Hokage again. Maybe. We'll agree to the terms for now, but if there is any sign of trouble from this guy, I want him dead at the hands of our Anbu and within the span of single second, said Tsunade, as she looked at Hinata and saw the girl waiting for the response. How is he even going to know we agreed to the deal? Said Kurenai, as they now had no means of contacting the masked hunter and made things very troublesome. He knows. The masked hunter is using a shadow clone to hear everything on the wall of Konoha, said Hinata, as she pointed to the spot where the two older women saw the figure look at them with flashing red eyes before he went poof. Well, that solves that problem, but you still need to tell me what happened while you were his captive, Hinata, said Tsunade, as she looked at the girl with stern eyes and saw the girl was not afraid to answer her questions. I understand, Hokage-sama, said Hinata, as she walked with the Hokage and Kurenai to the tower to tell them everything they needed to know about the masked hunter. Tsunade sighed as she rubbed her temples and tried to remove the killer headache that this masked hunter had placed on her through his action with Hinata. From what Hinata told her, Tsunade had only a few days to get the banishment lifted off of Naruto through the permission of the Fire Daimyo, or else she would miss out on the opportunity to nab an enemy of the elemental countries. Still, what bothered the slug-san and turned Hokage was that the masked hunter had just about surrendered himself to the leaf and all for someone that he didn't know. Granted, Tsunade wasn't going to deny the offer was so much in her favor as she would jump on it like a 1-month-long casino gambling event and take the deal no problem. However, there was a problem with this deal and it was too damn one-sided in her favor that made the female Hokage's old gambling instincts kick in. This deal smelled rotten somehow and Tsunade couldn't figure out how. Did the Fire Daimyo get back to you, Tsunade-sama? Said Shizune, as she knew the man would since he felt that a direct line to the Hokage was much more efficient when keeping an eye on his shinobi village and find out how things are going within it. Yes. He gave the approval for the banishment being lifted and is going to be in Konoha the day the masked hunter surrenders and signs the agreement set up to make this legal, said Tsunade, as she knew he was going to bring a large group of samurai with him for good measure and she herself was going to have Anbu stationed all around them too in the public square where this would take place. That's good news, but the question now is how do we even contact Naruto to tell him to come home and even then will he want to? Said Shizune, as she knew some people still hated Naruto for the fox and their current decreased lifestyle in the leaf. Apparently, from what Hinata told me, the masked hunter will contact Naruto himself and has set the date for them to enter the village together. Together, as if they were old drinking buddies and dear friends, said Tsunade, as she couldn't believe it and still wouldn't believe it until she saw them with her own two eyes. Won't that be a sight to see, said Shizune, as she knew that people were afraid of the masked hunter, but to see Naruto walking beside the man together would speak volumes and maybe even rumors of a partnership between the two. Yeah, it will. The only one that seems to be happy with this is Hinata, said Tsunade, as she couldn't believe the girl's luck and wondered how much of it rubbed off of Naruto onto the Hyuga heiress before he left 3 years ago. The others are a bit nervous. A lot happened 3 years ago, with people learning about the Kyubi being Naruto, and then this masked hunter appears killing shinobi from all over. None of them really want the masked hunter in our village, but they do want Naruto back, and most of them want to apologize for thinking so little of him. Well. All except Sakura, that is, said Shizune, as she couldn't understand how Sakura could blame Naruto of all people for Sasuke's situation and hate him for having the Kyubi within his body. Maybe we can convince the masked hunter to kill the pink-haired bitch since she's still an uchiha fangirl, said Tsunade angrily as she heard Shizune gasp and look at her in mock horror. Tsunade-sama, said Shizune as she mocked a woman scolding a child and pointing a nagging finger at her teacher. What? Did I say that out loud? Oops, said Tsunade mockingly, and the two women laughed at the pink-haired girl's expense. Seriously, Tsunade-sama, how are we going to convince Naruto-kun to stay, and not just for Hinata's sake, since she could just leave with him if she wanted to, said Shizune as she saw Tsunade frown and just collapse back in her chair. I don't know, Shizune, but the councils will not like it, and even with their powers being stripped to next to nothing, they will demand Naruto be punished for his actions after his banishment, said Tsunade, as she knew they were on her case about this the moment they found out and kept on making the desire to punch them right out of Konoha very tempting. Kakashi hasn't been the same either, said Shizune as she saw the man was depressed beyond reason and looked ready to kill himself just as father did. Serves him right. He trained the Uchiha, abandons his other 2 students with one of them being in the Chunin exams against a hate-filled Hyuga prodigy and with the power to shred a person's internal organs. It was even sheer luck Naruto found Jiraiya to fix the seal on him and teach him how to use the fox's chakra, said Tsunade, as she had a few choice words with Jiraiya about his teaching ethics regarding the boy and how one does not teach someone to use demonic chakra by shoving them into a ravine. Oh yeah. Jiraiya was in the hospital for some time with that lesson stuck in his head. And again later on in a far worse condition when Hinata found out. But Naruto a few days later. Naruto grinned behind his mask as he stared at Konoha from his current position and wondered how they would react to him being what he was now. Would they simply piss themselves? Shit themselves? Do both? Most likely both in his mind. Of course, for such an incredible if not most shocking prank to manifest itself to its fullest potential, Naruto would need to deceive almost everyone in the Leaf until the contract was signed on his end and everything became official for what he intended to do. Shadow clone jutsu, said Naruto as he made a copy of himself, which then hinged into what he would look like now growing up with black pants, combat boots, and a nice crimson shirt with black trench coat with a crimson fox on it. The old hag was right about one thing. We definitely look good in black and red, said the shadow clone version of Naruto as he grinned in a feral manner at the original and the two headed towards the entrance of Konoha. You are a fox in human skin, kid. Well, you're not fully human anymore, but that's beside the point, said Kyubi in Naruto's head as he laughed at what was about to happen and the aftermath it was going to cause. Konoha Public Square. Tsunade was currently waiting for the masked hunter with Jiraiya as the two waited for Naruto to arrive. The fire daimyo, along with the most elite of samurai beside her, were waiting patiently. Hidden within the shadows of the crowd waiting for the two different individuals to arrive were Leaf Anbu, waiting to strike the masked demonic figure the instant he tries something. They were also under orders to prevent any and all harm from befalling Naruto without so much a hair being harmed on his spiky blonde-haired head. Failure to comply and following that particular order would result in severe consequences. Do you think the masked hunter and Naruto will show up, Hokage-sama? Said the fire daimyo as he saw awaited the arrival of the scorned hero of Konoha that the other countries around the Leaf called Naruto and wondered if the blonde would stay in the Leaf at all. Naruto won't miss this. He'll come back to the Leaf if only to have his name cleared of all charges, and if he leaves again afterwards while flipping this village off, then I won't stop him, said Tsunade as she figured the Gaki would do that and teach these bakas a lesson. Well, you don't have to assume anything as he's walking this way and so is the masked hunter, said the fire daimyo as he saw the two figures walking side by side and the blonde Gaki sporting a devious smile on his face. Minato, your kid has grown up quite a bit since I saw him, and I'm sorry I was so stupid and not staying in the village to protect him, thought Jiraiya as he saw the blonde Gaki and saw so much of Minato in the kid it was frightening. When the two finally made it up to the recently built platform for this grand event, the Naruto looked at the fire daimyo before bowing and then looked at Tsunade with a smirk on his face. After the blonde asking how she was doing, calling her an old hag in the process, which resulted in a variety of insults being exchanged between the two, Tsunade eventually had to hold back punching the blonde into next week, for now, and focus on the masked hunter next to him. Okay, here is how it goes, Naruto will sign the agreement first, as the fire daimyo, and myself have already done so with both our seals on it to make it 100% legal. After that, you my masked friend will sign it and then be put into the custody of my Anbu. Do you understand? Said Tsunade, as she saw the masked hunter nod his head and saw Naruto nod while smiling at her with that same devious look on his face. Let's do this thing granny, said Naruto, as he saw Tsunade scowl at him and a look that promised of pain later on for that remark while he moved to sign the deal on paper. The kid hasn't changed at all, thought Jiraiya as he eyed the masked hunter cautiously and wondered how someone came to be like that. Without another word, the masked hunter waited for the blonde to sign the paper before him with people among the large mass of the villagers and shinobi watching the events unfold. Of course, he saw with his infrared vision that there were shinobi in the village watching this and some armed more than others to indicate they were Anbu hidden amongst the crowd to move at a moment's notice. Now it's your turn sir, said the fire daimyo as he saw the masked hunter turn to face him and then the paper in question before walking over to it when Naruto moved out of the way. Without a single word being said, the masked hunter that was secretly Naruto took the pen from his shadow clone copy and signed the paper simply as masked hunter since that was what everyone called him. Okay. All parties have signed. Naruto, if you would step away from the masked hunter, the Anbu will now take him away for interrogation and then lock him away, said Tsunade as she nearly moved to grab the blonde Gaki and keep him safe by her side. I'm afraid we can't do that Hokage-sama, I'm afraid we can't do that Hokage-sama, said Naruto and his shadow clone at the same time causing the female Hokage to tense at that, while the shinobi in the leaf did too at their shared statement to her. Naruto, what are you talking about? Said Tsunade as she looked from Naruto to the masked hunter and then back at the shadow clone in confusion. Sorry granny, but you've been deceived and so have you daimyo-sama. Well sort of, said Naruto as he went poof to reveal to everyone that he was indeed a shadow clone and left just the four of them on that stage. No, it's not true, thought Tsunade as she realized what had just happened and it was now becoming confirmed when the masked hunter began undoing his tubes connected to his mask before removing it after putting both hands on it. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the sight before them as they couldn't breathe, some people fainted, some shinobi began to sweat heavily and Tsunade looked like she was ready to collapse from the shock. The fire daimyo was frozen in place, as were his samurai army, since they were terrified of this figure that destroyed nearly all his prey, and the rookies were so surprised that Choji gave his bag of chips to Shikamaru to eat while swapping it for the cig the lazy Nara was smoking. You all look like you've seen ghost. Or would you prefer the term demon? Said Naruto as he dropped his mask and then let out a mighty roar that made everyone cover their ears at the sound. Naruto. It can't be you, said Tsunade as she looked at the side of her godson and surrogate brother in this state of demonisms that seemed to be his true form. What? You were expecting the Yondaime? Said Naruto before letting out a demonic chuckle and looked over the contract he had signed regarding his past actions. This cannot be, said Tsunade as she saw the nightmarish form that Naruto had taken up while being outside of the village and she didn't like it one bit. What? You expected me to be something else, granny? You should really thank old Danzo team for sending all those rude Anbu after me after I left. Bastard wanted to mold me into his little weapon to overthrow you so he could become Hokage. Fell off a cliff during a battle and landed in a ravine where I stumbled upon an interesting place. The place where I could unleash a side of me I never knew existed or thought was even possible to have, said Naruto, as he had one of his clawed fingers stop at sentence in the deal that made everything all the sweeter upon his return to Konoha. Uzumaki Naruto is hereby fully pardoned of all past crimes against Konoha up to the point of signing this document on the date specified below. But look at what you've become. What you did to the shinobi of the leaf if not the other shinobi villages. Said Tsunade as she saw Naruto didn't really seem to care about that and just grinned at her with that demonic feral smile. Like I care what happens to the fools within the leaf. You know as well as I do, all of those I killed that were from the leaf were all connected to the abuse I suffered as a child and it was high time that they paid for their sins against me. The old man sent them away, but when they came back, they wouldn't learn their lesson and so I vowed in secret to get my own revenge. How I did it would be up to me and on my terms. As for the others from various shinobi villages, I am sorry I had to kill Sunan and Baki, but I owed Gekko hate and I knew Gaara's sensei from the Chunin exams was the one responsible for it. I already sent a letter to Gaara explaining myself and that the man I killed was worthy prey, said Naruto as he saw Tsunade looking at him in shock and the fire daimyo was still frozen from hearing all of this. What about the leaf itself? Don't you want to regain the lost bonds you had with the rookies or the Jounin senseis? Said Jiraiya as he couldn't believe his just starting out to be apprentice was and saw the now young man look at him with red eyes that sent chills up his spine. What about it? This place hated me the moment they learned of the fox in my body. As for lost bonds, almost of them are too scared to even look at me the same way as before, said Naruto, as he looked in their direction and saw them flinch at his gaze, like they were looking at a vengeful demon. Almost all of them? Said Jiraiya, as he saw Naruto grin at him and then turned to see the figure of one Hyuga Hinata walk up to the steps before standing face to face with the former shinobi of the leaf. This wouldn't have been possible without Hinata-chan, said Naruto, as he proceeded to kiss Hinata right on the lips and Hinata herself was returning it. Again, people were stunned further into silence and could not begin to think for minutes on end on how to act on this. Of course, like all shocking moments, it came to an end, and this one ended when Danzo along with his root Anbu appeared all around them with weapons drawn. You are under arrest for deserting the leaf and killing leaf shinobi demon brat, said Danzo, as he didn't really care what slip of paper the boy signed with the Hokage and Fire Daimyo's seal on it. Ah, if it isn't my old enemy Mr. Old One-Eyed Team and his merry band of root butt fuckers. I was wondering when I would get a chance to get my payback on you for what you pulled to help get me banished. How has life treated you? Poorly, I imagine, since Orochimaru and Kabuto are dead and your secret partner to take down the leaf is no more, said Naruto, as grinned at the sight of Danzo's shocked face and the angry look the man had at losing his outside asset in taking over the leaf village. So it wasn't just Orochimaru wanting to stay hidden from the Akatsuki organization that I haven't heard from him, recently thought Danzo, as he saw Naruto's wrist blade on his right arm extend and the boy looking hungry for a fight. You really are a stupid baka for trying to fight me, Danzo, and with such a large group of weak shinobi. After all, I did kill Hoshigaki Kisame and Uchiha Itachi, so this is no real challenge for someone like me, said Naruto, as he saw Danzo now look at him with fear in his eyes, and the root Anbu took a step back. You're bluffing, said Danzo, as Naruto let out a laugh that sent shivers up the old warhawk's spine, and everyone else's too. Do I? I have their ring-covered hands, Kisame's sword Samahata, and their skulls from their bodies hanging on my wall as trophies. I showed you, but then you might try to take them, and that would be a very bad thing to do, said Naruto, as he pulled out a shuriken disc with his left hand. And he was just daring them to fight him while Hinata was in her gentle fist stance, ready to help defend him from harm. Demon abomination. Kill him. Kill him now, said Danzo, as he pointed his caned hand at Naruto, and the root shinobi charged forward with weapons ready to spill the young man's blood. Ah, so many people attacking and wanting me dead. It must be my birthday, said Naruto, as he threw the shuriken at the root Anbu, and several lost their heads, while others lost limbs, before several more were struck down by the young man's wrist blade. Hinata herself was also getting into it, as she was not about to have these mindless bakas attack her Naruto-kun, and began striking back with vicious precision. At the same time this was happening, Jiraiya along with Tsunade acted in fighting off the root Anbu too, and the Fire Daimyo was instantly surrounded by his samurai to escort him to safety. The rookies along with their Jounin senseis were also watching this when something inside of them just snapped and the desire to protect their old comrade they had so selfishly on their part ignored since the beginning of Naruto's young life. They had felt so guilty over what happened to him, how they had betrayed their beliefs, and the very convictions they were taught to live by had hit them hard. They had seen someone who had grown up with nothing but the clothes, horrible as they were, on his back and learning everything himself with no help from anyone except a mild few in the leaf hold his own where they struggled. This kid was at their level when he didn't have any help in learning while they had parents, senseis, and scrolls and shinobi library at their disposal. If Naruto had what they had growing up, he would have dominated them all and would have been the prodigy to end all prodigies. Instead, Naruto's chances to become what he should have become had been wasted, and now he was being attacked by an old power-hungry warhawk that couldn't stand the sight of his own failures to do what he originally planned for the leaf. They owed their long-lost friend so much, and they were going to return to him tenfold. Soon, the rookies along with their senseis were in the middle of the fray and were now fighting Danzo's root Anbu, much to everyone's surprise. Danzo himself couldn't even believe it, as he had assumed that the rookies and their Jounin senseis would hate Gaki for what he was before going so far as to help kill the Kyubi vessel. When his forces began to dwindle down to nothing, Danzo tried to get away, but was cut off by Tsunade's Anbu forces, and then by Naruto himself covered in the blood of root shinobi. Naruto, wait. Listen to me, I can help you achieve power beyond anything you could imagine, and help you achieve your dream of being Hokage, said Danzo, as he was gutted by Naruto's now revealed jagged-edged sword and then had his head pierced by the young hunter's wrist blade before it was ripped apart. Letting the dead warhawk fall to the ground, Naruto looked at the bandaged right arm of the man and sensed there was something wrong about it before pulling the bandages off to reveal it was not the dead man's actual arm. What was more disturbing was Danzo had apparently surgically implanted every Sharingan from the Uchiha clan from the night of the massacre onto his arm and was gearing up to use them in some way. Deciding not to let anyone get their hands on the arm, Naruto pulls out a canister of blue liquid solvent and poured it on Danzo's body to let it dissolve into nothingness. With that done, Naruto then turned to look at the others, having seen him do what he just did, and could tell they were still a bit nervous to approach. What? Oh, for Kami's sake, I'm not going to eat, skin, or mount your heads on my walls as trophies. I'm not Sasuke, said Naruto as he sees them go less tense and Hinata came up to hand him his mask. Here you are, Naruto-kun, said Hinata as she handed it to him and the multicolored haired demon vessel put it back on, though Hinata got in a quick kiss before he did. Hey. When did you two start getting all romantic? Said Ino as she was shocked when the two did their lip-locking moment before the fighting and wanted answers. And of course details. Hinata explained that the time she spent with Naruto after her abduction allowed the two of them to really get to know one another and learn about each other's life during the 3 years he was banished. When Kiba asked if Hinata finally lost her virginity to Naruto, the Inyazuka regretted it when he was hit in the head by Ino, Tenten, and then Naruto himself put his wrist blade near his throat to make him repeat the question. Kiba decided to be smart for once and claim he had amnesia from the 2 fists that hit his skull while trying not to get his neck cut by the 2 blades on either side of it. Troublesome Naruto. You are the very definition of the word, said Shikamaru as he saw Naruto smirking at him and had to suppress the shiver that ran up his spine. I wouldn't be Uzumaki Naruto if I wasn't Shikamaru, said Naruto as he saw the Nara nod his head since that was true and saw Lee look ready to have an old-fashioned spar with him. Actually Naruto, your heritage was revealed shortly after you were banished by the orders of the Fire Daimyo, after he got a lot of heat from all the people you helped on the missions you were sent on outside of Konoha and told everyone you were the son of the Yondaime. You're officially a Namikaze now, said Jiraiya as he saw so many people nearly shit their pants at this news and even then only a few people felt guilty. What did Minato ever see in these people anyway? So I'm his son, huh? Well, it doesn't matter to me. I'm still Naruto and I'm not going to act like you think I should act. I'm going to be whatever I think I should be, and if you don't like then you can go in a hole somewhere to die. Said Naruto as he knew that so many people would want him to be like his old man and say Minato was like this or Minato was like that to him. Naruto was his own man and wasn't going to change because of someone else's standards they believe were set by his old man. Fair enough, but could you at least move back into Konoha again, Naruto? I mean, you are fully pardoned of all your crimes against the Leaf and I could teach you everything I should have taught you when you were growing up, said Jiraiya as he had gotten the crap kicked out of him by Tsunade and Hinata for being a piss-poor godfather. Of course, Tsunade got her ass kicked by Hinata too when the Hyuga girl found out the woman was Naruto's godmother and further proved a long-standing quote from the first Nara clan head. Woman can go psycho kung fu whoop bitch on you and anyone else when angry. If they are angry, do not look them in the eyes, do not make a sound, and in another country for the next couple of decades until they calm down. Otherwise you're fucking dead. I suppose for a time I will stay in Konoha, but it's only temporarily. Said Naruto as he saw them a little relieved but were sad to hear Naruto only staying for a short time and not permanently. And during that time, Naruto-kun is spending his time with me. Thought Hinata as she was not about to have anyone ruin her time with Naruto and was going to milk every second she could with him. I need to convince Naruto to stay on a more permanent basis. But how can I? Thought Tsunade as she wanted Naruto to stay in Konoha and needed her surrogate brother to stay in the Leaf. Though the problem now was how to convince Naruto to stay in the Leaf permanently. Naruto was in the Namikaze clan estates as he had been given everything that was his inheritance despite some minor protest from the 2 councils, but that was stopped when his wrist blades were drawn and his laser-guided dual chakra casters aimed at certain people in the room. After that, the demon vessel that was once banished from his village had entered the home that was rightfully his for the first time in over a decade and a half since he was born. Hinata wanted to come with him of course, to be his emotional support in all of this, but Naruto told her not to, since he needed to do this by himself and would call for her when his time in it alone was over. Hinata understood, as this was an emotional and private moment for Naruto in being in the home of his long-deceased family that many had long forgotten. Naruto walked along the halls of the large building to see it had gathered quite a bit of dust over the years since his father had put up blood seals over the place to keep anyone aside from family from entering. In the main area, Naruto saw the picture of his parents together in a family portrait that was no doubt made shortly after they were married and no doubt happened before he was conceived. So many feelings rose within Naruto's being as he looked at the large portrait of the two and wondered what was the right emotion to feel in regards to his parents. Naruto knew his mother died giving birth to him, as he saw such memories thanks to Kyubi finding and preserving them for when the time was right to see them. Kushina knew what her husband was going to do in regards to their son, but Naruto could see from the memory that she would have loved him no matter what and would have protected him from the bakas that wished to destroy him within the leaf. Naruto's father, however, that was a different story. Naruto's father, who was Namikaze Minato, tried to do a noble thing and screwed it up in the belief the village would follow his dying wish. The man himself had even admitted that it would most likely not be the case right before his own death and yet had not done anything to ensure some kind of safety net for him. What really burned the hunter's blood more than anything was the fact his own godparents had left him and knew that they needed to be by his side. And where were they during his time suffering? Gambling, peeping, and getting drunk almost every night to shut out the voices in their head to take care of their godchild. Naruto also blamed them too for his suffering, as well as he believed that his father should have done something to make sure that he was loved should the two back out of their responsibilities and the old monkey lose his spine after becoming Hokage again. Though that was all in the past now, as nothing could be done to correct it and Naruto didn't want to think about it anymore, then he had to. Looking away from the picture, Naruto headed towards the clan library and see just what his old man had left him there that was worth looking at. The Noha Memorial Stone several hours later. Kakashi stared at the large stone where so many people close to him had died, with the list being pretty extensive like so many others. His teammates, his sensei's wife, the Sandaime, and shinobi comrades that were sent out on missions that cost them their lives. When Tsunade summoned him to her office, she had cut to the chase and yelled in a demanding voice why he had ignored Naruto for the Chunin exams finals. His answer? Sasuke was fighting the best and only deserved to be trained by the best. Oh yeah. That was a great answer. Tsunade put him in the hospital for that and he wasn't out for a whole 2 weeks. When he did get out, Kakashi was told that he had betrayed the very code he lived by and betrayed one of his students in favor of another that had turned traitor. Not only that, but the Fire Daimyo had seen fit to remove any kind of restriction placed on Naruto's heritage and announced that the boy was in fact Minato's son. Apparently, the Sandaime in his infinite wisdom had felt that Naruto's identity should be kept a secret from all but a select few and that he should grow up living a normal life. As if anything about the kid's life had been normal. You always were so predictable in your actions, Hot Aki, said Naruto as he uncloaked himself and appeared behind the Jounin. Hello Naruto, said Kakashi in a depressed voice without looking back to see his former student. Lost on the road of life again? Or maybe you're lost on the road of the present from having constantly lived in the past? Said Naruto as he saw Kakashi stiffen and then the Jounin's shoulders slacken. A little bit of both I guess, said Kakashi before finally turning around to face Naruto. How have you been since I left this shithole? Must have been pretty painful to know that you bet on the wrong horse when it came to training only one of the 3 students you had, said Naruto as he saw Kakashi wince at his words and was glad they were hitting home. Naruto, I know I wronged you, but had I known you were Sensei's son I would said Kakashi as he was silenced by the speed that Naruto moved and now had a jagged-edged sword aimed right at his throat. Being the Yondaime's only child should have had no influence on my training, Yubaka. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be shinobi of the leaf, but you along with just about everyone else didn't want me to be one and tried to sabotage my dream. Does it comfort you at night, Kakashi? To know that you betrayed your sensei's own son who wanted to be Hokage like his father and that you favored the son of traitors that became one just like them? Said Naruto as he saw Kakashi look away with his one eye and the Jounin was forced to look at him when he felt more metal touch the flesh of his neck. I am the only family the Yondaime needed. You were an accident. Nothing more, said Kakashi as he had always known but pretended he didn't and wanted to get back at the boy's mother for it. Shame my father isn't here for you to tell him that to his face. As usual, you take the coward's way out and act like a whiny bitch while drowning in the past so you don't feel any of the guilt. Do you feel any guilt, Hot Aki? Do you feel any guilt in betraying my father? Do you only find joy in knowing you hurt his son because it soothes your ego in getting back at my mother for loving him? You act like an uchiha who wants what he can't have and kills those that do to make you feel better. No wonder your father killed himself. He probably saw the same thing I do now and didn't want to live with the fact he ironically raised a carbon copy of an uchiha. Funny how you are now half of one with that Sharingan eye and think you're better than everyone, said Naruto as he smirked behind his mask and saw Kakashi narrow his eye at him while tightening his fists. My father killed himself because he felt guilty for choosing to save his comrades over a mission, said Kakashi as he could practically picture Naruto's smile behind that damn mask and wished he could reach for a kunai. And not once did you tell him it was okay. Like the villagers did with me, you went along with the crowd and probably didn't tell him that you were proud he chose his comrades over a mission that would have gotten them all killed. You helped cause your father's decision to kill himself because you didn't have the courage needed to tell him otherwise. There is a personal place in hell for you when you die, Hatake, and I hope you enjoy spending your time there suffering for your sins alone," said Naruto as he retracted his blade and turned to leave with Kakashi acting quickly before putting the point of a kunai to his former student's neck. "You're one to talk about hell like you're some kind of saint here, Naruto. Your hands are stained in blood just like mine. Even more than mine from your official kill count if the rumors are to be believed, and I have no doubt they are true," said Kakashi as he was not about to have this bastard child of the Yondaime talk to him like he was some second-rate shinobi. Then throw down a punk card that couldn't be met with a response. "Please, I've heard those rumors, Hatake, and they are hardly accurate. My kill count is by far much higher than what they say it is. Oh, one more thing for your own records, my so-called sensei, well, my hands may be stained in blood. They are stained in the blood of the guilty and those that embrace betraying friendships," said Naruto before he went poof to reveal he was a shadow clone and the real one was behind Kakashi before stabbing the man in the back out through the stomach while a hand was over the Jounin's mouth to cover up the scream. "You won't get away with killing a Leaf Shinobi this time, kid," said Kyubi, but his words were ignored by his vessel as he felt the satisfaction Naruto felt from doing this and pulling the sword harshly out of the wounded man's body. "I'm not going to kill you, Hatake. To me, you aren't even worth killing, not even worth skinning and hanging up in a tree for everyone to see your shame. That would be your death. If I ripped out your skull, I would sooner break it in my hands before I accepted it as one of my trophies and dissolve your body into nothingness so not even a speck of you survived to be blown into the winds. Instead, I'll leave you the way you were meant to be long before I met you, and that my lazy former sensei is in the form of a crippled body to match your mind. Enjoy the rest of your miserable life being dead from the waist down," said Naruto as he left Kakashi to either live his life in a wheelchair or die of blood loss while crawling to the hospital. Either way, Naruto didn't care and never would. Unknown location. "It is as we feared. The masked hunter is the Kyubi vessel," said Pain as he now stood among the various projected people in the room and saw some of them were nervous. "That means it's true that Itachi and Kisame are dead because of him. Who are we going to fill in their spots with?" said Conan as she knew that any members they got were far and in between in terms of potential. "Correct. From what we have been able to determine, Orochimaru along with his right-hand man Kabuto are both dead too, and the choice of missing nin with potential have thinned out over the years thanks to the Kyubi vessel killing them all," said Pain as he saw the other members of the organization looking a bit concerned since one of their targets was not the weak pushover they thought he was. Taking out two of their strongest members aside from their leader and his own partner standing beside him. "Do we really need them for the final part of our mission?" said Sasori as he knew that his mission was to get the one-tailed demon, but that may prove difficult if Naruto chose to hunt the other members of Akatsuki and take them out altogether. "No. Their rings, however, are an entirely different matter and we need to find them for our plans to work," said Pain as he suspected that Naruto would have the rings of Itachi, Kisame, and Orochimaru now after killing those three. "How do we proceed?" said Conan as she looked at Pain and saw him frowning slightly in thought. "We will hunt down the other demon vessels and then focus on the Kyubi vessel once the others have been extracted," said Pain as he saw them nod and leave now that the matter had been resolved. "My pet's vessel has gotten stronger than even I had anticipated. Most troubling, but no matter, it won't be long before I achieve my status in being the one true god of this world and have its populace bow before me when I become the new 10-tailed Kyuubi," thought Madara from the shadows of the room before he too left the area. The No Hanami Kazuya State Master bedroom 2 days later. The sounds of flesh smacking flesh echoed throughout the massive house as Naruto was currently pounding into a happy Hyuga Hinata from behind and the said girl was loving every second of it. Once Naruto got his house cleaned up, he immediately invited Hinata over, who did just that and in a very sexy dress with a look on her face that was simply glowing. A few comments about how sexy Hinata looked, showing her around the estates, then ending up in the bedroom, and the two soon lost their clothes before entering in a world of passion. And that was hours ago. "Say you are mine, Hinata-chan. Say you are forever mine," said Naruto as he nipped her neck, thrusting into her like a jackhammer and with the strength of one, while the girl was currently lost in a world of pleasure. "I'm forever yours. Fuck. Oh Kami. I'm yours, Naruto-kun," said Hinata as took her from behind and his hands massaged her breasts in a dominating fashion. "Then I claim you Hyuga Hinata as mine," said Naruto as he sped up his thrusts and came with a might roar that was matched only by Hinata's screams of pleasure that filled the house. The two lovers collapsed further onto the bed, panting from so many hours of passionate sex with Naruto, rolling his much larger, heavier form of Hinata and placing the woman on top of him in the process since they were still connected at the hip. As they lay there, Hinata let out a sigh of complete satisfaction as Naruto wrapped them up in a blanket and let out what sounded almost like a purring motion that was music to the Hyuga's ears. "Naruto-kun, can I ask you a question?" said Hinata as she let out moans of pleasure and loves how one of Naruto's hands is still groping one of her breasts. "Anything, Hinata-hime," said Naruto as he drowned himself in the sensations his body felt right now and the person he was with. "If you left the village, would you take me with you?" said Hinata as she wanted to be with Naruto and didn't care if she had to give up being a leaf shinobi. "If that is what you wish. I was planning to pack things up and head to Wave Country when things calmed down. How does that sound?" said Naruto as he knew the people there would welcome him and Hinata to their lands since he was Wave Country's hero. "That would be nice. I heard a rumor that Spring Country's ruler misses you too and that she wouldn't mind if you stayed in her country to be the Kage of their shinobi village there," said Hinata, as so many people outside of the leaf would want Naruto to stay in their lands and each one brought golden opportunities for him. "Yeah? That is very interesting. I become a Kage of their shinobi village within Spring Country, gain an alliance with Suna, and trading rights with Wave Country would be interesting," said Naruto, as he knew from the letter Gaara had sent him earlier yesterday that he now understood why Baki had been killed and held no ill will towards his fellow demon vessel. "You would make a great Kage of any shinobi village, Naruto-kun," said Hinata as she felt him stir a little and felt a certain part of him coming back to life. "And an even better Kage with you by my side, Hinata-hime," said Naruto as licked her earlobe and giving signs of another round in bed. "You insatiable Naruto-kun," said Hinata as she flexed her body with the help of using her Hyuga-born chakra control skills to stay attached to him and now straddle his waist. "You have only yourself to blame for that, Hinata-hime. And that action you just did also tends to get one's blood pumping to a certain area of the body," said Naruto as he thrust up and making Hinata gasp in pleasure. "And what a certain part of you it is," thought Hinata as she began to ride Naruto and felt his hands once more on her impressive bust. Hinata could get used to this. Hokage Tower 2 days later. Tsunade sighed heavily as she rubbed her temples to keep the mind-splitting headache that threatened to destroy her at bay and looked at Naruto with pleading eyes. Eyes that had no effect on him whatsoever as she had spoke to him for the last hour on what his plans were while staying in the leaf and she didn't like what he said. Naruto had made it clear that his time within the leaf was going to be temporary, as that had been made clear by the young hunter's few choice words for the people within it, and wasn't going to live in an arrogant village any longer than he absolutely had to. Tsunade had tried to convince him to reconsider, since his return to the leaf would go a long way to having the village become what it once was. Naruto responded that you can change the face of the Hokage of the leaf, but the people within it would for the most part always be arrogant bakas and those that aren't being in the minority. Please reconsider, Naruto. You still have friends here. You saw what they did for you when fighting those rude Anbu. Doesn't that prove to you that there is hope for the village, said Tsunade, as she saw the once more masked form of Naruto in his exotic armor, along with the regal-looking robes with the namikaze and Uzumaki symbols on it to let everyone know just who was in the leaf that the people once hated. No. Not yet. Konohamaru and his friends have the potential to one day do that, but they have a long way to go, and the others will one day be clan heads that will one day be a part of the councils. Where I go, they cannot follow, and even if they did make an attempt, it would make them question their nerve in being what they are in terms of being shinobi, said Naruto, as he saw Tsunade nod her head, since she knew that he was referring to his methods of killing people, and that such methods would weigh heavily on their consciousness. So what do you plan to do while under the temporary employment of the leaf? Said Tsunade, as she knew he had no intention of halting whatever plans he had yet to share with her, and not all of it if he decided to share with her. Kill the rest of my enemies that wish to hunt me and the rest of my demon vessel kin before they can do anything. After they are no more, the fate of the Leaf Village. I will leave in your hands until Konohamaru is old enough to take that title from you, be the next Hokage, said Naruto, as he didn't want Tsunade to know he was going to possibly pay a visit to a certain daimyo and famous actress of the now named Spring Country Kazuhana Koyuki with Hinata to become the leader of their shinobi village. The last thing Naruto needed was for Tsunade to give the secret order to terminate him after leaving the village to several Anbu squads in order to prevent a potential threat from attacking the leaf. I still wish you would reconsider staying in Konoha on a permanent basis, Naruto. Those that care about you would wish for you to stay too, said Tsunade, as she hoped that the idea of staying for the people that did care would cause the hunter to reconsider and be a permanent asset of the leaf. And on a personal note, be her surrogate brother once more instead of this noticeable gap between them that seemed so awkward for Tsunade, and have that family bond that she wanted so much from Naruto. Again, the answer is no, and I won't change my mind simply to appease your aching heart, Tsunade. Do not think I am unaware of your responsibilities you and Jiraiya neglected when I was growing up, said Naruto, as he saw Tsunade wince and sensed the super pervert hanging outside of the window of this room, wincing too. The bond Naruto had with the two had been torn, almost broken fully, and it was only due to his code of honor that the notorious hunter decided to help the leaf out right now. I understand. Can't blame the Hokage of Konoha for trying, said Tsunade, as she gave him a weak smile and saw him nod before getting out of his chair to take his leave from her office. This village has much to answer for. I understand the fire daimyo has already done his own share of punishing the people here in the leaf, but that is his way of hurting them, and my way of doing things is completely different. What is that old saying that people use to say Tsunade? In for a penny. In for a pound I believe is the old saying you old folk said back in the day, right? Well, if that is indeed the case, then the leaf owes me a lot more than just a pound, and I aim to collect in full, said Naruto, as he left the room while activating his cloaking system and decided to pay a certain someone a visit. Training ground number 5 to 20 minutes later. Uchiha Sasuke was currently training his guts out with rage burning within his heart as he pounded on the training post and picturing it to be his most hated enemy in all of the elemental countries. It wasn't Itachi, as the man was dead, and Sasuke had made peace with that face his big brother was slain by someone stronger than him. No. The biggest enemy right now was the one who defeated him at the Valley of the End, the one responsible for bringing him back to Konoha and forced him to face the punishment set down by the inferior clan heads. The same clan heads that ordered his bloodline sealed off in all ways possible to reproduce it in order to revive his clan to the glory it once had. Naruto. When Naruto left, Sasuke was glad that the loser was gone and believed he would get a slap on the wrist for what he did since the councils gave him whatever it was he desired. However, when Jiraiya came in with a smirk on his face with Tsunade giving off one of her own, the Uchiha knew something had happened that was not in his favor and tried to fight off the Toad Sannin when the man told him he was in the boy's room to seal up his bloodline forever. Then came the rumors of the monstrous demon that skinned and took heads as trophies of his various victims that were killed. Sasuke had become intrigued by this guy as the man only hunted the strongest of missing nin and shinobi from other villages that the man faced. In a way, it seemed fitting to Sasuke that his enemy was also the one he wished to one day kill after Itachi was declared killed by masked hunter that he recently learned was none other than Naruto and wished to fight his former teammate once more. Sasuke wanted to see if he had regained any of his lost strength that had been robbed from him by Jiraiya's sealing of his Sharingan and see if there was any chance of proving that even a crippled Uchiha was superior to those around him. I heard your bloodline was sealed away, but even I'm surprised they let you back into the shinobi ranks and continue your training, said Naruto as he appeared to the right of the Uchiha and saw Sasuke looking at him with cold vengeful eyes. Welcome back, loser. Have you gotten taller? Said Sasuke mockingly as he smirked at Naruto, who beeped his head to the right and then back again. Is that all you have to say, team? Something about my height. And here I thought you would have gotten stronger both in body and in mind. After your Sharingan was sealed away, I thought you'd have learned humility and grow out of your arrogant nature that all of your clan possesses. Yet here you are, still thinking that you are better than everyone else, and I bet right now you are having quite a few thoughts and wanting to kill me to somehow get stronger than even your dead brother. Am I right, Sasuke? Said Naruto as he saw the boy frown and snarl at him while turning his hands into tight fists. Shut up. Regardless of my Sharingan being sealed away, I will always be better than you, loser, and I will prove I better than everyone in Konoha when the time is right, said Sasuke as he got a laugh from Naruto, and it was a cruel cold laugh that brought chills to the Uchiha's spine. And here I thought Uchiha Sasuke had no sense of humor. Let me ask you something, Sasuke, when we were at the academy, didn't it strike you odd that the teachers would ask me questions no one at the academy could answer? That my papers always seemed to be harder to figure out, but the teachers ignored why it was, and that any questions I asked was met with being kicked out of the classroom during the entire lesson. Ever wonder if that was never the case? That people didn't hate me? That the teachers had actually encouraged my development rather than hinder it, and I had a family to teach me things about life that your clan did with you? Ever wonder what it would have been like if Kakashi trained me like he did you? I would have been a high-level jounin in a good 2 years, while you would just barely be qualified to become a Chunin since you were late for the Chunin exam finals. Said Naruto as he saw Sasuke looking like he was about to have steam coming out of his ears in rage, and all because of the one simple truth the Uchiha knew was undeniable. That Naruto was right. Sasuke had everything handed to him while Naruto had nothing, and still Naruto had been the stronger of the two of them when it came down to the two of them fighting. It doesn't matter. You were never worthy of having the power this village gave me, and you could never hope to understand how to properly use it, said Sasuke as he was once more rewarded with that same cruel laughter from the masked demon vessel. You think I don't understand power, Sasuke? I have the Kyubi sealed inside of me. I can use its power if I have to, but I choose not to because power is not something to be tossed around or abused like you would no doubt do if it was in your possession. It requires finesse and control to wield power, Sasuke. If you lack either, the destruction you would cause would be unimaginable, and innocent blood you spill would be on your hands forever," said Naruto, who saw Sasuke smirk and shrug his shoulders. "Like I care about innocent people. I only care about myself. Everyone else is just cannon fodder and a stepping stone on my way to achieving what should rightfully be mine," said Sasuke as he got into a fighting stance, and if he could see through Naruto's mask, he would see the devilish smile across his former teammate's face. "That is the difference between the two uchiha. I may spill blood, but it will never be that of an innocent person, and I will never betray others for more power. It's no wonder your brother killed your clan, since they were all power-hungry bakas just like you," said Naruto, as he knew just how to provoke Sasuke and saw his former teammate now looking infuriated beyond measure. "Damn you, Naruto. When I kill you, I'm going to mount your head on my wall as my own prize trophy, and then I'll bring that Hyuga slut Hinata over to my house to see it before I make her my bitch," said Sasuke as he charged at Naruto, who stood perfectly still and waited for the Uchiha to dig his own grave. It was long overdue for the Uchiha to learn humiliation, and you can't spell humiliation without humility. When Sasuke did get close enough, Naruto drew his sword in a flash, and seconds later the bloodline crippled Uchiha was now physically crippled with 2 limbs now severed from his body. Sasuke screamed out in pain as his left leg along with right arm had been severed off at their respected limb junctions of knee and elbow, while Naruto himself let the screams become music to his ears. "You're so pathetic, Sasuke. Just like your sensei. I hope you share a room together in the hospital ward since he's just as crippled as you in more ways than one. Perhaps you two can talk on how you let your arrogance and pride help cripple you both long before my blades ever did that deed," said Naruto as he left knowing that the Anbu would be here any minute with Tsunade, watching his actions with the Sandaime viewing orb and moving to save the life of the Uchiha. Slums the apartment complete. Naruto walked into his old, slowly falling apart home that was his place of living for over half a decade, as he was kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 4 and had to live off garbage for the next 6 months before the Sandaime finally took time to notice him long enough to set up a place here. Looking back on it, Naruto wished that what he was now was also watching over himself back then and got the Sandaime like the old baka he was. But now was not the time for wishing vengeance on those that could not feel it, as Naruto had means of getting it in other fashions, and hoped the old Kage was seeing this from within the deep regions of hell. Walking into the building, Naruto made his way to the apartment landlord, who was an old arrogant baka, and on several occasions beat him with a cane for no apparent, at the time, reason. Stopping at the wooden door, Naruto knocked several times and waited for the door to open before he awed the bitter old man that hurt him while living here. The old man looked the same as he did back then and seemed to be frozen in time in terms of showing age. At first, the old man's eyesight had prevented him from seeing Naruto clearly, but once he did, the old man instantly tried to shut the door and failed to considering just who it was that he was trying to keep out. But the demonic roar, Naruto destroyed the door and sent the old man that was once his apartment landlord flying across the room. The old man tried to sputter out some words, whether they were that of apologies or further insults was unknown since Naruto didn't care, since it was time to get his pound of flesh from the bastard. All Naruto wanted out of the man while cutting him to pieces was the screams of agony and gurgling sound the old man made before dying from his injuries while drowning in his own blood. And by Kami, he got it, and then some. "It's good to be me," thought Naruto as he took out explosive tag but had an additional seal added to it to make the explosion go off with that of others that were placed within 50 feet of the first one. Within 20 minutes, the apartment was ready for demolishing and Naruto did just that after making a hand sign that triggered the original placed in his old room. And in that same moment, the people of Konoha knew just who it was that marked the Leaf Village and made it his own by marking it as such. Naruto had marked his territory within Konoha, had shown that those that wronged him were on notice, and he didn't regret any of it. Amik Jiraiya's early attempts at cloaking. Jiraiya fumed at the way his late student son was able to cloak himself and become invisible at will while not being detected by anyone. It should be used for other far more noble purposes like peeping on all the hot women from within female section of the hot springs. Which was why Jiraiya was now, after failing to convince Naruto to make him one, if that was possible the jury was out on that, decided to try doing it himself and beta testing it in the hot springs. Of course, at the time of coming up with the idea of trying to be invisible, the super pervert side of Jiraiya's brain had taken over for the purpose of using it for just that and asked for the stupid side that was its neighbor for help. "Oh Jiraiya, you ever so stupid baka, how we hardly knew and almost pity you. Almost. That's it baby. Soak yourself in water. Oh Kami look at that one. Take off the towel. take off the toe. Oh. Oh crap, they spotted me. Thought Jiraiya as he was looking through a small peephole through a part of a fence he was holding and was currently with his back against the rock wall portion of the hot springs. Was it mentioned that all the women in the hot springs were all female shinobi from the IT department and that they were being trained by Mitarashi Anko herself, with said woman also in the hot springs? No. Well, they were, and they were pissed off that the famed self-proclaimed super pervert was peeping on them. Kill him. Yelled the group as they descended up Jiraiya and made him cry out for his mommy. As stated before, we hardly knew and almost pity you Jiraiya. Almost. So this part ends here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so quickly like this video for second part of this series. And comment down below your thoughts about this series. And now it's time for me to go, bye.